the new shiny DJI Pocket 3 is out, and we're gonna compare it to the battle-tested DJI Pocket 2. Because even though the concept remains the same, the implementation and the design are very different. Because for some, the DJI Pocket 3 is a perfect choice, it's an upgrade that will make perfect sense. But for others, the DJI Pocket 2 is probably everything they'll ever need, because this little fella still punches about his weight. And the most striking difference that you're gonna notice right off the bat is on the screen. Because the Pocket 3 has a much improved 2-inch OLED screen that works vertically and horizontally. And let me tell you one thing, it genuinely works really well, it's very bright. You can now actually see what it is that you're doing. You now have a screen that is just as functional when you do vertical and horizontal filming. You literally just flick the screen down and it goes into vertical and you don't lose any features, any functionality. The Pocket 2 on the other hand has a very small screen. It does feel a bit dated. The menu layouts are very difficult to browse when you compare it to how easy it is to browse the menus on the Pocket 3. But it is at nighttime and in low light conditions that you're gonna appreciate that larger screen on the DJI Pocket 3, because on the Pocket 2, it's so tiny, so small, you can't see shit, let alone framing. Whereas in the Pocket 3, you can actually frame and see what it is that you're doing. It kind of feels like the Pocket 2 went to the gym for 3 years and it's put on muscle and it's grown bigger, larger and beefier. If you are someone that is a little bit shy or doesn't feel very confident talking in public or walking around and doing any type of vlogging in the streets or public places, the Pocket cameras are perfect. And this is where I come in and tell you that the DJI Pocket 3 has some big improvements over the Pocket 2. And it does. It has a much larger sensor, a higher dynamic range, a very nice D-Log color space compared to the D-Cine that the Pocket 2 had, and a 10-bit signal. So all of those things theoretically make a big difference. And yet, in bright daylight conditions, in well-lit environments, it makes absolutely no difference whatsoever, because I have tested this and I cannot tell that much of a difference. At least not to the point that I would say, wow, what a shocking improvement. Because you just have to look at these side-by-side images and then you let me know whether you can tell the difference between the Pocket 3 and the Pocket 2. And yes, in vlogging mode, you get this really nice shallow depth of field on camera, and that's really nice to get. But that in itself is not mind-blowing, because this is something that I can recreate in less than 45 seconds in DaVinci Resolve. So the improvements of the Pocket 3 over the Pocket 2 are not as huge as you would expect. And yes, the color space is an improvement, but it's not that noticeable. It's got higher dynamic range, but it's not something that is shockingly obvious. And the bitrate, yes, it's much higher, 10-bit, but it's not something that is setting the world on fire. So I think if you are heavily invested in the Pocket 2 and everything that you do is filming in bright daylight or in well-lit conditions, I think the improvements of the Pocket 3 over the Pocket 2 in image quality are marginal. And yes, you're gonna get nicer images, they're gonna feel sharper, they're gonna feel neater, you're gonna see a bit more detail in the background. There are certain improvements. It's been 3 years, for crying out loud. I mean, they have to do something better. But in my opinion, the leap forward of the Pocket 3 over the Pocket 2 is in everything else other than image quality. A lot of the times when you go from horizontal to vertical, you need to do some adjustment of some kind. And that usually comes at a detriment of functionality and features. Because normally you get all the functionality that the gimbal and camera provides when you film horizontal, and it's limited when you do vertical. But with the Pocket 3, that's not the case. You literally just flick the screen from horizontal to vertical and the camera automatically crops down to 3K. You can do everything that you can do horizontally in vertical mode. You have no restriction of movement, no limitation on features or functionality. And I genuinely recommend that if you do vertical filming, that you use the Pocket 3 in that mode and you don't just film horizontal and then crop in post. Because what happens when you film in vertical is that you actually frame accordingly. Whereas sometimes when you do horizontal filming and then you want to get a vertical version of whatever it is that you film, your framing is slightly off. You are slightly out of the frame. The Pocket 2, on the other hand, has a very small screen, and it was a real pain in the ass. I mean, I was put off from doing any vertical filming on the Pocket 2 because it's just really awkward. Whereas now on the Pocket 3, you have no problem whatsoever. You can now set up the Pocket 3 to automatically start tracking you and focusing the moment you go into vlogging mode, which is something that you cannot do on the Pocket 2. You can do tracking, but the quality of the tracking is very different between the Pocket 2 and the Pocket 3, to the point that on the Pocket 3, you can genuinely use it. It's gonna hold you there. You don't have any jerky movements or some kind of zigzag movements. But if you're the kind of person that moves sideways a lot as you vlog, you may actually prefer to turn off dynamic tracking or any type of tracking altogether, because otherwise the software is gonna try to keep you in the middle of the frame as you move. And that might actually be a little bit irritating and distracting. Whereas if you turn it off, the footage is gonna be really nice and stable, and you get a higher tilting range. And this is the same with the DJI Pocket 2. There are no difference in that regard. The Pocket 3 has this new focus mode, the product display, and I am not 100% sure of what's the point of it. Look at what the Pocket 2 can do, and then look at what the Pocket 3 can do with and without this focus mode on. What do you think? Is it worth it? Because I'm not 100% sure it is. You are genuinely gonna get nicer images, less noise in the darks, and you now have a low light mode. You are filming in normal mode, and the image is very contrasty, very saturated, and a lot of that information is baked into the signal, and it's gonna be a bit of a pain if you want to adjust things in post. But that's not to say that the Pocket 2 was not, or is not, good enough in low light, because it really is good, but you will always notice the better quality on the Pocket 3. And if you go into extreme low light conditions, obviously that's where that 1-inch sensor is gonna come into play. They both connect wirelessly to the Mimo app, and in that regard, I don't think there is much of a difference, other than the Pocket 3 does feel quicker and better and more robust connection than the Pocket 2. On the plus side for the Pocket 2, you have the connectors that you can slide onto the actual Pocket 2 and then connect directly onto the smartphone without the need of going wireless, because there are many situations that you will want that larger screen over the small LCD or OLED screen, because even though you get a 2-inch OLED screen, it is 2-inch, whereas a smartphone will give you anywhere between 6 to 7 inch screen, and that's a lot more real estate to look at. And when it comes to audio, both the Pocket 2 and the Pocket 3 give you very neat solutions. With the Pocket 2, if you buy the Creators Combo, you get the dual handle as well as a wireless mic that the moment you link it to the Pocket 2, it connects automatically and you are recording high quality from the wireless microphone, which is exactly the same that you get on the Pocket 3. The big difference is that the DJI microphone is a 32-bit audio signal compared to the 24-bit that you get on the DJI Pocket 2's microphone. And that difference is huge, because on the Pocket 3, that 32-bit signal means that you are never gonna clip the audio and it's never gonna be too loud. You are always gonna have the range to recover that audio. Whereas on the Pocket 2, if you clip the audio, you clip it. There is no range to recover it. So you always have to rely on recording the audio correctly. You should always record audio correctly, but the Pocket 3 is a lot more forgiving. And not only that, but the DJI mic on the Pocket 3 allows you to record the audio internally on the transmitter itself, as well as on the Pocket 3. So you can pair it, and the moment you trigger recording, you're recording audio both on the camera and on the transmitter. You are always gonna have a backup audio signal at 32-bit on the transmitter itself, and you're gonna get around 11 hours of storage, which is more than enough for a day's or even 2 days filming. And one area where the Pocket 3 has improved significantly over the Pocket 2, without a doubt, is on active tracking, because on the Pocket 2, it's something that is very temperamental to the point that it's unreliable. You cannot reliably use it. It loses you. It's just not usable. It's not something that you can rely on, and I have never used it. On the Pocket 3, on the other hand, the active tracking is really good. It's really smooth. And when you go off frame or you're too far away and it loses you and then it picks you back on, it's very smooth. In general, active tracking, whether it's for standard filming or for vlogging, it's much better on the Pocket 3. And when it comes to battery life and how long you can film with these cameras,
there is also a big improvement on the Pocket 3 over the Pocket 2, because on the Pocket 2 you had around 140 minutes, and that's obviously very dependent on what resolution you use, what frame rate, and how long the takes are. Whereas on the Pocket 3 you get about 166 minutes. The difference is that if you get the Creators combo, you get an additional 100-minute battery with the Pocket 3, so that's gonna give you nearly 4 hours of filming. Whereas with the Pocket 2, normally about an hour and a half, you would be struggling for battery life, and you would have to get yourself an external power bank. You can fast charge the Pocket 3 up to 80% in 16 minutes. That's very fast. And it goes without saying that the interface and the menu layout has improved dramatically on the Pocket 3 over the Pocket 2, because on the Pocket 2 the screen was so small that a lot of the times you would get lost in between menus and the entire layout was a little bit cumbersome. This is all down to the size of the screen because it makes it a bit difficult. Whereas on the Pocket 3, that larger screen means that you can actually see more, and the menu layouts now make a lot more sense. They're much more intuitive, much more natural. You get a lot more options because you are able now to browse much quicker and in a really nice and bright screen. Does that mean that the Pocket 2 is a bad camera and you need to stop using it? No, it's a really good camera. It's just that the Pocket 3 is better. That's just the way it is. It's a bigger sensor, it's a big improvement. It's been nearly 3 years, so 3 years of technology is bound to give you a better camera. There is a financial aspect of upgrading from the Pocket 2 to the Pocket 3 because none of the accessories that you use on the Pocket 2 will work with the Pocket 3.
If money is tight and you base everything on image quality and you film mostly on daylight and in bright conditions, you can probably stay with the Pocket 2 and not upgrade to the Pocket 3. And that doesn't mean that the Pocket 3 is not a great camera or a great upgrade, because it is. You get better image, you get better functionality, you get better features, you can film a lot more. The screen is really nice, you get more settings. Everything has been improved and everything is better. You need to decide whether the upgrade is worth it for you, because pound for pound, the Pocket 2 still kicks some ass. The question is, can you justify investing in the Pocket 3 and upgrading all the accessories and everything that goes with it?
And you need to decide whether this is even an option for you to invest on. But if you are interested in the DJI Pocket 3 and want to watch my review, I leave it here. I think you're going to find it really interesting. So click on it and I'll see you there.